Imagine tripling your gold in a few hours. Sound impossible? Think again. Hey legends, do you ever gaze enviously at someone riding Invincible or wielding Shadowmourne and think, how the heck did they afford that? Or perhaps you're preparing to finally down the Lich King in your weekly heroic and you find yourself a little bit short on the gold front. Today I'm not just unveiling any secrets, I'm sharing the ones most gold guides don't talk about. This isn't the same old grind, it's the untapped wealth of Northrend. And trust me, once you're in the know, the gold just flows. GDKPs, Gamma Dungeons, Battered Hilt Farming. We've got all the insider tips. But here's the catch, time is of the essence. The quicker you jump in, the bigger your gold stack will grow. Imagine being the envy of your guild, not just for your gear, but for the hefty gold pouch everybody wishes they had. Now for a special challenge. If this video hits 500 likes, which I know you legends can do, I won't just drop another guide. I'll host an exclusive in-game event, a chance for you to join me on a gold-making run and see the magic in action. So hit that like button and let's make some gold together. Before we can make some huge profit for ourselves, we do need to understand the loot systems around raiding. Back in the old days, we had the DKP system or the Dragon Kill Point system, which was a loot system that came about in EverQuest. Players had to deal with very scarce loot being available for a large number of players. The solution was to reward anybody involved in the kill with points. Since most bosses in EverQuest were dragons, it made sense to call them Dragon Kill Points. These Dragon Kill Points could then be spent in an auction system to obtain the desired piece of gear. But the DKP system had plenty of flaws, like point hoarding for big items. That led to people skipping over smaller upgrades and making the raid worse overall. There was also the recruiting problem, since new players had zero chance of winning any items. Although GDKP does remain as a viable loot system, by 2008 a new and improved system had come about in World of Warcraft. This system was called the GDKP or Gold DKP system, and it switched the currency from points to pure gold. Players would bid hundreds if not thousands of gold on items, and the winner would receive the item and have to pay for it. Then the gold would be dispersed to the rest of the raid, who would now have more gold to buy other items. The benefits of GDKP were immediately clear. There's a huge incentive for players to join the runs and get paid, so the recruiting aspect takes care of itself. Players also tend to stick around at GDKP since they want to get their payout. In other systems like Soft Reserve, people are quick to leave if they get their item or if the raid starts leaving. Another benefit of GDKPs is that they allow players to get BIS items that would never normally be available to them. For example, a tank could buy a Deathbringer's Will for PvP even if they won't be using it during the raid. However, GDKPs did bring a lot of negatives to the game as well. Since gold was the ultimate currency of GDKPs, gold buying and botting became much more prevalent. And since you can never really know where the gold from a big spender is coming from, there's always a chance of getting falsely banned just for joining a run. Not to mention that the organizer could just take the whole pot for themselves, a shocking twist that happens much more often than you'd think. The popularity of GDKPs rose throughout Wrath and Cataclysm before personal loot and Mists of Pandaria changed the meta. Then it became more about boost runs and carries instead of selling individual items. That brings us to the modern day, where GDKPs are back in full force as Wrath features the old-school master looting system. Modern GDKPs vary wildly in terms of skill level and the amount of gold being bid out. But on average, in today's game, there's more money to be made doing this method than any other in Wrath. So let's talk about the modern GDKP scene and how to benefit from it. The first thing you need to understand about the GDKP scene is that there are 4 metrics that matter. The first is your gear score, which is something we can easily fix. GDKPs have different gear score requirements, which we'll talk about in a minute. Getting at least 5,000 should be a bare minimum for now, though. I've got a full guide in the top right to catch up extremely quickly and fix up your gear score. The TLDR is that you'll want to buy as many 264 BOEs as you can. Then you can fix up your weapons with TOC weapons or even a Quel'Dalar. The second metric that raid leaders care about is the amount of gold you're willing to spend. This number will vary between runs, but 5,000 is a bare minimum in my experience. You can achieve that amount in just 5 hours by running Gamma Dungeons for Primordial Serenite. Then we have the actual class and spec you're playing. For example, it's a lot easier to get into a run as a Holy Paladin than as a Frost Mage. The fourth metric that matters is logs, though it only really matters for the most serious GDKPs. Speaking of serious GDKPs though, it's important to understand that there are 2 very different types of GDKP runs. There are the normal focused GDKPs that recruit pugs from the LFG channel. Then there are the big-name GDKPs with sign-up sheets and logs and gold checks. First, let's talk about Pug GDKPs. Pug GDKPs are runs you can find on the LFG channel, and they're run throughout the week at random times. The Pug GDKP will usually have lower standards and will focus on normal modes over heroics. That means they're more focused on filling out the raid with the right classes and specs to succeed. This means the focus is mostly on inviting hybrids, which are well-geared players that do intend to buy some items. Even if the pot is lower, if the rate succeeds, the leader will take home a nice 20% cut for their time. Still, even as a lowly rater, you could easily walk out of a Pug GDKP with 10 or 15,000 gold depending on raid success. What's great about these runs is that they happen all the time, so you can join one without any planning. And the competition for items is usually really low. In Pug GDKPs, you could easily walk out of the raid with a BIS weapon or a trinket very cheaply while still making several thousand gold profit. The downside, though, is that these runs are usually pretty messy and they can take 4 or 5 hours to complete since everybody in the group is random. So you might wonder, how do I get into a Pug GDKP? Pug GDKP leaders usually want to hear your spec, your gear score, and your budget in an in-game message. For Trial of the Crusader, you want to be at least 5,000 gear score with a 5,000 gold budget. Then for ICC normal GDKPs, you'll want to be at least 5,300 gear score with a 10,000 gold budget. Budget exceptions can be made though for extremely geared players. Keep in mind that if you send a Pug leader too low of a number, they'll likely just not respond to you. So how much gold could you make in a Pug GDKP? You should expect to be able to make at least 1,000 gold per hour in Trial of the Crusader. Then in Icecrown Citadel, you should be able to make about 3,000 gold per hour. Full ICC lockouts will typically pay about 8,000 gold in Icecrown Citadel, which is still incredible gold for the time spent. In fact, this is why a lot of players are making so many ults right now. The more characters you have, the more runs you can do, which means the more money you can make. These runs are usually found on your server's Discord or in a place like Stacks, which shows all the relevant runs for Fairlina. Serious GDKPs are the ones you see on Reddit with 2 million gold pots. These are the runs that are usually partial guild runs and they have very high expectations. 5,500 gear score and at least 20,000 gold to spend are often the requirements. They'll usually also do log checks as well and expect 70 or higher parses depending on your class. A serious GDKP will usually have a sign-up sheet on Discord and even require you to submit your gold in a screenshot for proof. These runs are way more concerned with overall pot totals and bragging rights as well. One interesting trend I've seen is that more serious GDKPs have been lowering their cuts lately for better raid quality. So how do I get into a serious GDKP? Serious GDKPs are usually partial guild runs of at least 10 guild members. The rest of the slots will either be for carry DPS or carry healers with 5,800 or higher gear score. Towards the end of Phase 4 though, there will be more slots for pure buyers who come in with 100,000 gold or more just to buy items. The best way to consistently start running serious GDKPs is to just join one and get into the Discord and the ecosystem. Then you can start signing up for runs like clockwork for thousands of gold in profit each week. So you're probably wondering how much gold you can make per hour. Most serious GDKPs are no longer running Trial of the Crusader and they've moved towards ICC. ICC runs and serious GDKPs will pay anywhere from 5 to 10,000 gold per hour. My most recent run in the Squilly GDKP missed several heroic modes and we still took home over 20,000 gold each. That means I made over 7,000 gold per hour for the time spent. If you want to make thousands of gold per week, of course you'll want to still be doing primordial serenite farming and taking full advantage of crafting and professions. But GDKPs can be a very good system for making gold and getting free gear as well. And the beauty of it is that it snowballs, since the more runs you do, the more gold you'll make and the more gear you can get. Then by the end of Phase 4, you can be taking home tens of thousands of gold per week in pure profit. It's just gonna take some great planning to maximize your gold for the rest of the phase. Then you can achieve rare items like Invincible or Shadowmourne. So if you want the perfect plan for the rest of Phase 4, check out this guide to make the most out of the rest of the phase.